So change is not a one and done scenario. You are in charge of your life. You're in charge of your career. You have the ability to make those changes, but give things time. Things that initially might seem scary or might seem like this is not the right fit. Oftentimes they end up over time having a way of working themselves out. So go into things open-minded would be my response.
Welcome back to Connected Conversations Season 3. We are in the throes of the season talking about corporate real estate industry experts, why. And today I am very excited to have a friend on today's podcast. He's somebody who I've known for quite some time. We go back probably 10 years as competitors, colleagues, and now I'm lucky enough to partner with him. And I really am happy to have the opportunity to speak with him today because there's a good inflection point in his career and where we are in our partnership together. And I'm speaking about none other than Nick Holzworth, Managing Director, America's Consulting, CBRE. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Bob. How are you? Thanks for having me on today.
So, Nick, what we like to do at the beginning of these podcasts is give the audience a little bit of your background. So why don't you take us through how you ended up to where you are today?
Oh, it's a long story. Background, Bob.
Let it rip.
I took it a kind of an interesting route into the workplace arena. You know, finance and econ guy by training, and very, very quickly I realized I wanted to be out. I wanted to be in the action. I wanted to be talking to folks. And so pivoted to more of a sales role and got my start in the industry in the janitorial business. So in Chicago, selling janitorial services to office buildings, to hospitals, to any kind of as-built space. That company grew. I ended up moving out west to expand and open up some new markets in the Western region. And from there, was hired by a company called BRG. BRG hired me to start selling and talking about IWMS.
We were enemies. We were arch enemies.
We were arch enemies, yeah. But to start selling this thing called IWMS. So my first day, I said, "What does IWMS stand for?" So I had to get the workplace technology 101 training, and from there grew into the industry. Met a lot of great friends. From BRG and JLL, went to a prop tech company. I caught the San Francisco kind of startup bug. So joined a prop tech for a while and really excited. My firm Buildingi was acquired by CBRE January of last year. So welcomed with open arms into the CB family. And I'm now leading a sales team focused on consulting services around the workplace, location strategy, economic incentives, leading the sales team for occupancy management, as well as the legacy Buildingi group, which is really focused around workplace tech.
And your role's changed a little bit here recently, right? You've taken on a lot more responsibility.
Yeah, it has. It has gone from, someone out in the field and actually delivering these services and selling these solutions and interfacing with clients. And that's really my passion. That's what I like doing. And I'm still going to continue to do that, but move more into a leadership role. So helping the broader organization think about growth, think about what our clients are asking for, drive efficiency and consistency in that sales and delivery process. So it has changed a lot as of late.
We're on very parallel tracks. I think, again, when I think back to it, I joked that once upon a time we were arch enemies. I mean, we competed against one another constantly as two of the largest IWMS implementers in the industry. At the time you were BRG, I was CFI. Both companies were acquired and bought and sold and all those things, which propelled us into different areas in our career. But one of the things that I would like to know from you is I had a hard time in the early days of elevating my career. And the problem I ran into, same thing. I delivered projects. I wrote requirements. I had some people who believed in me, but it was so hard to break into sales. They didn't want to let me on the sales team. Somebody was always throwing up a roadblock. And back then, there wasn't a ton of opportunity for the younger generation. It was a very guarded department that did not want to let the younger generation in. Did you have the same experience, or how did you matriculate through your sales career?
Yeah, it is a great question. And workplace, as we all know, is a small industry. I mean, it's amazing how many people I see at a conference that I've seen at various events over the last 15 to 20 years. And so there was a lot of nervousness coming into a business that I didn't understand and selling into an audience that I didn't know that well. I think it's a couple things. One, I had a fantastic manager. I have to give a shout out to Alan Neal. Alan Neal was very, very patient with me. You know, Alan was very patient with me, was willing to sit down and invest the time that it took for me to really understand this industry, understand the clients that we were servicing, and was really a mentor for those first 3 to 4 years, still is today. So making sure that you've got the right manager in place to support your personal growth is key. I would say the second thing that I've always been very good at and never been afraid of, well, two things. One is rejection. Maybe that was from my janitorial days of knocking on doors and selling kind of those hard services. So it's okay if you tell me no, it doesn't hurt my feelings. So that helped me in this career. But the second piece was I was really good at asking questions. I asked a lot of questions. Bob, I probably asked you 1,000 questions early on when we got to know one another around what clients were asking for, changes in the industry, what trends were we seeing? I would sit down with our various practice leaders every week and kind of pick their brains around how they were delivering projects. And over time, their knowledge kind of became my knowledge. And so it really elevated my growth.
Me too. And I didn't realize it till I got to a certain point in my career. I had the imposter syndrome, Nick. I was always like, oh, I'm not a sales guy. I'm not this, I'm not. And then somebody was like, no, you were definitely a sales guy. In a good way. I think sometimes it's looked at as, down upon to call yourself a sales guy. But to me, somebody once said it's a privilege to be in sales. And slowly, as I gained all this knowledge, and this is what I try to tell the younger generation, is you gotta pick a lane. And that's why I relate to you so well. We both stumbled into a lane and we stayed there for 15, 20 years. And it's just like, this is just what I know. So that when you're talking to your customers and prospects, you then become more of a consultant than you are a salesperson. And really, when you blend that, and it's a consultative sales approach. But again, what you just said about their knowledge became my knowledge, I can't agree with you more, because it's like, holy cow, I have all this knowledge I built up over the years. And I really like sharing it. I don't know about you, but like even mentoring a younger generation, getting on the phone with some of our joint customers that we've had, we both know that they really need to be educated. And that's some of the things that Kimberly Castle does with her team. And then, folks like us can come in a real, I guess, meaningful way, say, no, you want to do this first, then this. And we had a conversation about it yesterday about something that came up, and you're like, let's not distract them with that. And yep. I just think there's a lot of value in that.
I will tell you, and I think you've experienced this, for all the sales professionals listening. And sorry, you're seeing my hand move because I'm trying to get the light sensors to turning back on here. Sales gets more fun the more that you know. It really does. So yes. Every year that I advance in this career, it's more fun, it's more engaging, it's more meaningful, because I'm able to have those discussions with clients and bring knowledge versus trying to promote a solution. I'm focused on the client outcomes and their success, not focused on my particular product or service. And so you're able to come in and act as a consultative sales professional that, again, drives meaningful conversations and adds a lot of value and purpose to a sales career that gets more fun as you age.
I really do agree with that, because I'm in a place where I do enjoy the day-to-day, where when I was younger, you just, the Sunday scaries were every day was a Sunday scaries. It's like, oh my God, am I going to get yelled at? And some of it were not so great managers, if you will. Am I going to get yelled at today? Am I going to get fired today? Am I going to lose this deal today? And now I don't look at it that way, because I understand, over the course over the course of a sales process, you're going to win and lose the deal 5 or 6 times, right? Or if you do things the right way, if one deal doesn't come through, another one will. And it's a much different, and you said it best. I mean, I really like what you said there. As you move on in your career, it gets a heck of a lot more fun. And for both of us, we get a lot more responsibility. And then we could take what we learned from maybe a good sales manager, maybe a bad sales manager, maybe a bad or good experience with a customer, and then, pass that along so that the people who are working with us and for us don't have those Sunday scaries. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense?
It does. And the stress goes away because at the end of the day, you're not living and dying on a deal, right? You're living and dying based on delivering great client outcomes. And so it becomes easier the older you get in your career or the more tenured you get to say, no, you know what? The solution that I have is not the right fit for you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. And when you can have those honest conversations around, I'm offering Y, but you really need X. You've developed a relationship and you've built credibility that you don't know when that's going to come back to bear fruit. So there's many opportunities that I've promoted a client move a different direction that has come back to bear fruit 5 or 6 years down the road. So it's about being very honest with your clients, and you're able to do that by having the knowledge.
But Nick, I mean, and I want to bolster that by saying, when it comes to you, it's very true. I don't know anybody who has a bad word to say about you. And it's like, even us coming from a place where we were competitors, and now, we were competitors, then we were kind of colleagues when you were at Salt Mine. And then now we're partners, we work together on opportunities. So really, you have done that. And I want to give you a little bit of a pat on the back, where you're a credible guy. A lot of people like you. You're very involved in the Cornet world, and everybody knows you from that space. And you've just done a really good job of making yourself a brand in the industry. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who's on LinkedIn trying to influence the world or anything like that. But the people who know you, they trust you, they value. And I think you being at CBRE and your recent, I'll call it a promotion or additional responsibilities, I think it's very well deserved. And over the last, couple of years that we got to work directly together, I understand you a lot more, and I really see the value you've added to this industry.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I don't know at what point in someone's career you go from just trying to figure it out to the light bulb clicks on and you're like, you know what? I actually know a lot about this stuff, and there's value, and there's coaching, and there's leadership that I can provide. And so it's been a fantastic journey. By no means done yet. I think I've got a few more good years in me, Bob, before you hang me out to dry. But
I'm older than you, pal. I'm the one who's going to get hung out to dry long before you do. That's funny. Like, as you said that, my eyes kind of wandered because I was racking my brain, and I think I can tell you when the light bulb went off for me. It was 4 or 5 years ago. It was right before I came to Nuvolo, where I was like, I don't need to go through what I'm going through right now. And then I moved on, and I ended up at Nuvolo, where people needed that understanding. They needed that guidance. They needed that guy who had been there and done that in my lane, the corporate real estate lane, and the space planning place, because we didn't have that at that time. So that was, geez, 15 years ago for me. Or 15, 20, boy, we're pushing a lot of years. So like, let's say my light bulb took me 15 years. My light bulb took me 15 years. So with all that said, this is a great segue. So you've been at this a long time. You started by, selling janitor. I do not envy you selling janitorial services. I once upon a time sold security. I was the account manager for security guards. And my career started on the second day was 9/11. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare dealing with, folks not showing up to work, folks showing up. So I don't envy you. And I started kind of in a similar lane. But when we look back on things, and you talk about your janitorial services, I talk about security guards. why are you still here? Why are you still doing it? Like, what was so sticky about it that you stayed all those years? What's your why?
Yeah, it's a big question, and it's probably a variety of reasons, right? I mean, for me, Bob, you've seen pictures, and you've probably seen them on Zoom, calls. My kids, I've got two young girls, Eva and Isla, 4 and 17 months, and so a big part of what I do is because I've got a family to look after, and so that's a major component. The second component is really the people. I mean, I have developed fantastic friendships that are much more than just colleagues. They're much more than just clients. These are folks that get Christmas cards from my wife and I. We go out to drinks and dinner together. We travel together. So I've got some fantastic friends. I'm at the CBRE Salesforce Tower on the 46th floor. I'm not just here for the view. It's a great view, but I'm here because I enjoy the company and I enjoy the people that I work with. And ultimately, I like driving client outcomes.
I think as you go through that, there's a little bit of luck that comes with it, right? And that's what we're both lucky in a lot of ways. Because I wind up at Nuvolo, and this is me personally. This isn't a product ad or anything like that. This is me personally saying, okay, there's some folks here that are going to support me, listen to me, call me, ask me my advice, and respect me, or maybe I didn't have that before. And then for you, when you moved over to Buildingi, did you even think that CBRE was going to, swoop in and acquire, and then you're going to get to work on a great team like you are now? I mean, did you ever imagine that?
No. It was literally month 3 at Buildingi that the acquisition was announced. And so it was a bit of a shock, but change is a constant in our industry, as we all know. And embracing that change with open arms and being willing to step out and sell new services and put yourself out there and meet new people and be part of new teams is critical. I constantly advise young professionals, find something new to do to keep the creative juices flowing, to keep you engaged and keep that growth continuing in your career. So embracing change is a must.
It's so funny you say that, because back in the CFI days for me, right? The years just started to tick by. And every year I was doing, like you said, something different, something, I found a way to make my way into the sales department from being a project manager, a consultant. Nick, at one point I sat on site at a large biotechnology company and managed their old facility center application as I started my CFI career. And it's like, if I was still doing that today, I wouldn't have followed your blueprint, right? That wouldn't have been, and I was very much the same way. But the point about what you said, so the years start to go by, right? And then it's like, I'm comfortable there. I know the people I work with, and then change happened. We were acquired by a different company. So for 10 years, there was all probably what I would say good change, doing, like you said, the exciting stuff. And then something, I was having a lot of success at the year 8, 9, Nick, I had a ton of success. And it was like beyond my wildest dreams, like some of the opportunities that I had to work with some of the largest companies in the world that created this really great moment in my life. And then change happened. And I didn't know how to deal with it, Nick. Because 10 years, it was all the same. It's what I knew. And I didn't know how to deal with the change. So my question to you is, how do you deal with change that maybe isn't so positive? Like, how would you recommend the next generation deal with something that maybe isn't the most exciting thing in the world?
It's a lot in your mindset. So whenever change, if you're not seeking change, but change comes to you, and at that point you don't think it's positive, try to take a step back from the day to day and look at it as yourself 3 to 5 years down the road. What is this change going to help me achieve? What additional skill sets am I going to pick up because of this change? What new colleagues and friends and coworkers am I going to have because of what change is happening. And I think not all change may stick, right? You may have a change that 6 months down the road, it turns out it wasn't the right fit for you.
Yeah.
You then have the ability to go out and make another change. So change is not a one and done scenario. You are in charge of your life. You're in charge of your career. You have the ability to make those changes, but give things time. Things that initially might seem scary or might seem like this is not the right fit. Oftentimes they end up over time having a way of working themselves out. So go into things open-minded would be my response.
Recently, somebody said something, and anytime I see like somebody posting like a motivational thing on social media, I check out immediately. Or one of these motivations, somebody said something and it stuck with me. What's the best thing that could happen? You know the saying, what's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's the best? And you just described that so eloquently. It's like, what is the best thing that could possibly, there's some change here and something just happened, but what's the best thing that could happen as opposed to what's the worst thing that could happen? And really, Nick, do you mentor anybody currently? Do you have anybody that you work with on a one-to-one?
I've got a lot of people that I connect with that may or may not think of me in that kind of that context. I don't know if there's an official mentor mentee kind of title associated with it, but I would hope through some of the conversations and folks that I continue to stay in touch with, not only on my existing team, but in past roles, there's that dynamic there for sure.
The reason why I ask is like, we talk differently, right? Me and you, we talk, we're trying to figure something out, or we're trying to help one another out, and we talk as peers, right? And I learned from you yesterday, we talked through something and I was like, oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. But the point I guess I'm trying to drive at, I think you have a lot to offer, and I know you have a lot of responsibility, and you have a very big role there at CBRE. That's you have a lot of responsibility and accountability. But I guess what I'm saying to you is I really, really compel you based off some of the things I've seen working for software companies, working in the industry. People like you, Nick, are very important to the future of corporate real estate. And I think you have a lot to share. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast, is because you're not a self-promoter. You're just not. You're not. But then you start talking and it's like, wow, Nick has a lot to say. And I want to give you a platform to, kind of talk about yourself and kind of what you're doing at CBRE. And I just compel you to stay out there and look for opportunities and help guide the next. So there's another Bob and Nick coming in the future to fill our shoes, right? I really compel you to do that. So with that said, this comes to my next segue, which is something I would like to kind of touch upon here as we move towards wrapping up this episode, is what's the future of our space? Broad strokes, what are some of the things that you see are coming down the pike? Like, having been there, done that, the janitorial, the IWMS, the point solution, now leading sales initiatives for the largest real estate company. What's coming? What are you seeing?
Oh, if I had that magic 8-ball, Bob, I would be out of this industry much sooner than.
I'm not asking you to predict the future, but what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
We're still seeing a lot of our clients trying to determine what their portfolio needs to look like in light of changing work habits, changing work preferences, et cetera. And so I think obviously we're seeing portfolio consolidation pretty much across the board. There's certain sectors and industries that are still continuing to grow their footprint, but most are looking at the cost of unoccupied space and how they can potentially optimize their portfolio. So portfolio optimization is critical in almost every single engagement that we're pursuing right now. The second component is a more intuitive and user-friendly, not interface, but the entire workplace experience needs to be more intuitive, more user-friendly, and there needs to be more choice to it. I don't think this is a new concept. People have been talking about this for 3 to 5 years, but people want the option to come in and sit down and touch down at a desk, maybe go have a conference in a small conference room. Then they want to go to their local coffee shop, still have the same technology and connection. And then maybe they want to go home and spend the afternoon with their kids because there's a dance recital, and they want to get back online at 8 o'clock and finish up their day. So it's not only choice in terms of where you work, but it's choice in how you work. So what we're seeing is a lot more coming together. And since you and I's first session at Cornet 15, 20 years ago, we talked about the intersection of IT, human resources, and corporate real estate. Those three pillars coming together is not a new concept, but I think the pandemic and what's happening as late has really expedited that. And so you're seeing the workplace being more a reflection on the people and less on the performance of the built environment. Yes, those two go hand in hand. Performance, cost reduction, energy savings, et cetera, are all critical, but it's the intersection of how that mixes with the human experience and the choice that those humans have in terms of when they engage and how they come to the office and where and how they work that has led that IT, HR, real estate connection to bleed together more than it ever has. And I think we'll continue to see that in the future.
I think we talked about it. That's where IWMS came from, right? We talked about it back in our BRG and CFI days. We talked about it. But there was no compelling event like we like to talk about in sales. What's the compelling event? And it slowly started to trickle. The APAC region was much better about adopting these new workplace models before the pandemic. Like they were doing it. They were neighborhooding and free addressing and utilization versus alloc. They were doing it years ago. But then the pandemic came and it sped things up to where companies in the United States and all across the world had to kind of react to this. And it really created that compelling event and that momentum for this to really happen where space had to become, more of a reflection of the people. Like, I think that's great what you said. So with all that said, and I couldn't agree with you more, how can you and your team help folks out in the industry today? Like, what could we turn to the CBRE team to help them with, specifically with what you're responsible for?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bob. And there's a lot that we're responsible for, whether it's looking at economic incentive packages around location strategy. Is a new distribution center going to be in Stockton, California, or Fresno, California? Where's the labor and the talent in those regions? What's the cost to build out or to connect space? So that's one area around the consultative location and portfolio strategy. The second area that we do a really good job at, that's not looking at a particular product, Bob, but it's looking at a company's technology stack. You've worked with Kim Castle for a long time. I've known her for many, many years. I think that's one of the most valuable products that we have, is the ability to come in, take a look at what technologies a company is using today across real estate, facilities, workplace, reservations, cafe card management, fleet management, and help them determine what the future state roadmap looks like based on their organizational goals and objectives. And not just their organizational goals and objectives from a real estate perspective, but from a business perspective, a human resources perspective, and an IT perspective, and help them determine the right collection or suite of products to support that growth and build out a very detailed, actionable roadmap to help them get there. And so that's a service that I think every CBRE customer needs, and almost every client that I engage with. Is there are 7,000 pieces of property technology out there, Nuvolo being a fantastic one. Little plug, we support you guys wholeheartedly, and you're doing some amazing things, but helping our clients to determine what the right suite of technology products is and help them determine a roadmap to achieve their goals and objectives.
That's everything, right? It's that approach to say, we understand your requirements, and here are three to five solutions that may meet your requirements, and will help you narrow it down and decide which one. What about anything pertaining to the new ESG regulations? Is that part of your responsibility as well with the team you manage?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is not. There's a separate ES&G group within CBRE that focuses wholeheartedly on those suite of services and products. And so we'll work in tandem or partner with them on pursuits and opportunities and be able to leverage their expertise. But it is not a suite of products that my team particularly
And then
supports.
What about the outsourced space planning and things like that? Is that part of your world as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got kind of a two-pronged approach to occupancy planning. We've got a variable model. So we've got clients who don't necessarily need a fully dedicated planner. They may be a smaller mid-cap company with a portfolio size under 1 million square feet. So we've got a variable team that can come in and provide a percent of a resource, or come in and help do a utilization study, help do a restack, do a more project-based kind of engagement model. We also have a dedicated team. So for many large occupiers, they look at CBRE as an extension of their real estate team. So we've got embedded space planners, occupancy planners, change managers, workplace strategists, portfolio strategists that drive integrated services and outcomes for our clients around all things portfolio space and occupancy. That's
terrific. So Nick, as we wrap up here, I always take it from a stance of gratitude. I just want to thank you for being one of the real ones in the industry. We both can share some wild stories that have happened to us and people we know. But you're one of the real ones, Nick. You have a lot to offer this industry. You have a lot to offer CBRE, and I'm happy that you're there. And I'm grateful that I get a chance to work with you every day. And it's really, really refreshing to hear somebody talk the way that you do about sales and about the IWMS space and about the corporate real estate space, where I really, really value what you have to offer. And I really trust when we have a conversation and we arrive at a direction to go jointly. And I just really appreciate having you as a peer in this industry.
Bob, always a pleasure. Thank you, brother. If I don't get my daily call from Bob Massachetti, it just doesn't feel like it's been a complete day. So thank you. It's an exciting space to be in. I mean, as a father of 2 young daughters, having the ability to craft the future of how they're going to work and how they interface with the built environment, it's amazing. It's exciting. We work with great people. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to see the podcast go live.
Yeah. So with that said, I'm Bob Massachetti from Nuvolo. That's Nick Holzworth from CBRE. This is Connected Conversations. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the interwebs.